Widely considered Japan's most powerful prime minister in decades, Shinzō Abe has responded to a changing security environment in the Asia-Pacific, including an increasingly powerful and assertive China and growing North Korean nuclear threat. Of course, that has recently changed, but one wonders by how much. Now, by pursuing ambitions and controversial reforms, Japan hopes to reassert itself, but also distance itself from its violent, aggressive militarist past. These reforms have been aimed at strengthening executive control over foreign policy decision-making and bolstering deterrence through an expansion of the Japan Self-Defense Forces roles and missions and capabilities within and beyond the US-Japan alliance. Those reforms that Shinzō Abe's administration have achieved have invited claims that Abe is taking Japan on a, quote, radical path away from its post-war pacifism. However, a systematic analysis of both change and continuity during the Abe administration would reveal that many of these reforms actually build on long-term evolutionary trends that predate Shinzō Abe and his administration, and have attracted support from moderates within and outside his conservative Liberal Democratic Party coalition. Just as importantly, several core pillars of Japan's remarkably self-restrained defence posture remain in place, so we are not seeing, for example, a pursuit for nuclear weapons, or in fact an expansion of a naval tradition which stretches back to the aggressive policies of the 1880s to the 1930s. Abe is the longest-serving prime minister since 1972 for Japan, and really this transformation of institutional frameworks, the expansion of the defence forces roles, is also connected to a long-term sense of disappointment in the US. The idea that the US won't support Japan against an increasingly rapacious and aggressive China. And Japan is certainly looking long-term, thinking that regardless of any of the protestations from the US, China will be the rising power for the foreseeable future for generation upon generation, and so Japan should take care of itself. But of course these have been done in baby steps. There is no huge expansion of military conventional forces. With major geopolitical and economic shifts underway in the increasingly prosperous yet potentially volatile Asia-Pacific region, a sober and comprehensive assessment of change and continuity in the Abe era, as well as its significance for Japan's long-term strategic trajectory, is crucial. Since at least the mid-1960s, Japan's advanced economy and technological strengths have granted it a unique status, a kind of weird regional could-be military great power. Yet baked into its post-1945 resurgence via its constitution is the pacifist Article 9. This was drafted by the United States. This article, which has never been amended, says that Japan, and I quote, forever renounces war as a sovereign right of the nation and the threat or use of force as means of settling international disputes, and pledges that land, sea and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. The practical policy implications of Article 9 have shifted significantly over the past 70 years, and of course this is very much dependent on the strength and integrity of the US's position in the Asia-Pacific region. In truth, the years since 2012, the post-Cold War trajectory of Japan's security posture, some people would say that it can be characterized from a shift from outright pacifism to militarism, but these are really two deeply problematic terms and don't help us properly analyze the sense of Japan's political culture, as well as how Japan has seen itself and is trying to balance off against its past and its future needs. Really, it's about Japan being fairly passive, but also attempting to be more proactive. In 2018, Japan remains a remarkable outlier among major powers, especially in terms of restrictions on military force, its development and employment of military forces. Widespread claims of assertive nationalism and even alleged militarism in Japan's foreign policy under Abe, again, these are ill-defined terms, really don't cut any weight when you consider the tensions between the US and China and how much more the US and China spend in terms of security for the Asia-Pacific region. The first 6 years of national security reforms under the Abe administration hardly constitute a radical revolution. Japanese leaders' assessments of the regional strategic environment will continue to be a fundamental variable in shaping national security debates. In particular, if we look at the past 18 months of North Korea's testing of ICBMs, if we look at the Kim-Trump summit, we look at the seeming cooperation between Washington and Beijing, at least on that issue, but also when we look at Trump's America First foreign policy, all these raise anxieties in Japan and emerge as factors with the potential to disrupt Japan's view of itself and its foreign policy status quo.